During the Cold War, armies prepared for a conflict that was expected to unfold in some of the harshest climates on Earth. From the forests of Central Europe to the Arctic Circle, soldiers faced prolonged exposure, limited resupply, and the constant risk of cold injuries that could cripple units without a single shot fired. Military planners understood something many civilians still overlook. Warmth is not created by thickness alone. It is controlled through regulation. Out of this understanding emerged a deliberate clothing layering system that modern hikers, mountaineers, and survival instructors now use almost unchanged. What appears today as outdoor industry wisdom was forged under the pressure of global conflict. This guide explains where that system came from, how it worked, and why it remains superior in real-world conditions. You know, during the Cold War, military thinking really shifted. Clothing wasn't just about keeping warm anymore. It was reframed as a climate control system, almost like a piece of equipment, designed to regulate the body's environment in all sorts of extreme conditions. Before the Cold War, military cold-weather gear often relied on, well, heavy single garments. Thick coats and lined trousers provided insulation, but honestly they trapped sweat and restricted movement. In freezing conditions, trapped moisture was deadly. Once activity stopped, wet clothing froze, and just like that, body heat vanished rapidly. Cold War planners identified moisture as the true enemy. The solution was not heavier clothing, but modular layers that could be added or removed as activity changed. Clothing became a system designed to manage heat production, heat retention, and moisture evacuation simultaneously. So, this was a shift from protection to regulation. Right, let's talk about why the base layer became the most important garment. The base layer, well, it was designed to sit directly against the skin and manage sweat. Early Cold War systems, they favoured wool because it kept its insulation even when damp and, resisted odour during those long deployments. Later on, systems introduced synthetic fibres that dried faster, but honestly, the purpose stayed the same. The principle was simple. Sweat had to be moved away from the skin immediately. A soldier marching uphill generated heat and moisture. If that moisture remained, it would chill the body during rest. The base layer prevented this by wicking sweat outward. Modern hikers follow this rule instinctively, often without realizing its military origin. Now, let's talk about how the insulation layer balanced warmth and breathability. The middle layer was responsible for trapping warm air without blocking moisture movement. Cold War forces used quilted liners, wool shirts or pile fabrics that created loft while remaining breathable. This layer was not worn constantly. Soldiers were trained to add it during halts and remove it during exertion. Discipline mattered. Overheating was considered a failure of procedure, not toughness. Modern fleece jackets mirror this role exactly, functioning as removable insulation rather than permanent armor. So, you might be wondering why the outer shell was all about keeping out wind and moisture rather than just focusing on warmth. Well, the whole point was to shield soldiers from the elements, not to act as an insulator itself. The outer layer in Cold War systems, you see, wasn't meant to insulate. Its main job was to block the wind, shed rain or snow, and protect the inner layers beneath. Back in the day, early shells used tightly woven cotton or specially treated fabrics to cut the wind, while still letting a bit of vapour escape. Later on, designs got better at resisting water, but they never fully sealed things up. This approach helped prevent convective heat loss, while also steering clear of the condensation problems that came with garments that were completely impermeable. Modern hikers use shell jackets for the same reason, you know, and often end up repeating Cold War mistakes when they rely on waterproofing at the expense of breathability. How soldiers were trained to manage layers as actively as weapons. Layering was not optional or intuitive, not by a long shot. Soldiers were trained explicitly when to adjust clothing. Before movement, layers were reduced. During halts, insulation was added immediately. Ventilation was encouraged even in extreme cold to prevent sweat build-up. You know, this discipline kept soldiers dry and functional over long operations. Those who ignored it, well, they suffered cold injuries regardless of equipment quality. The lesson remains unchanged. Why this system excelled in unpredictable conditions. Cold War scenarios, you know, assumed rapidly changing conditions. Soldiers were constantly moving between forests, open fields, vehicles and shelters. Temperatures could fluctuate daily and seasonally. Honestly, a single garment just couldn't adapt to all of that. Layering, well, it allowed for a rapid response. A soldier could regulate temperature without needing to stop or unpack any gear. This adaptability, really, is what made the system so effective across different climates and missions. Modern outdoor recreation, interestingly enough, values the same flexibility for exactly the same reasons. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? Most modern hikers, without even realizing it, are following in the footsteps of Cold War-era problem solvers. The way we dress for the outdoors today, well, it owes a lot more to military thinking than most folks might guess. You know, today's whole base layer, mid-layer and shell framework, it actually mirrors Cold War doctrine almost exactly. Merino wool base layers have taken over from the old military wool. Fleece, that's what we use now, but back then it was pile liners. And technical shells, well, they've replaced treated cotton. The materials might have changed over time, but honestly, the logic behind them hasn't budged an inch. These days, outdoor brands love to market all this as the latest innovation. But truth be told, the system itself comes straight from military research and years of field experience. Funny how history repeats itself, eh? Understanding this history clarifies why layering works when other approaches fail. So, how can civilians apply this system beyond hiking? This system is not limited to mountains. It applies to winter commuting, power outages, vehicle breakdowns, and outdoor work. Wearing adjustable layers, you see, prevents sweating during activity and chilling during rest. You know, the key is preparation and restraint. Adding layers too late or, well, removing them too slowly really undermines the whole system. Cold War soldiers, they learned this the hard way, through tough experience. Practicing layer management before emergencies, honestly, it matters just as much as owning the right clothing. It's not just about having the kit. It's about knowing how to use it when it counts. So, why did this system replace heavy coats for good? Well, that's down to its sheer practicality and adaptability. It just worked better, plain and simple. Heavy coats promise warmth but deliver inconsistency. They overheat during activity and underperform during rest. The Cold War layering system eliminated this compromise by distributing function across garments. Once proven effective, it became standard doctrine and quietly entered civilian life through outdoor culture. Its survival is proof of its effectiveness. Right, so the Cold War layering system, it's not just about clothes, you know. It actually teaches us a lot about survival thinking itself. This system, well, it reflects a broader military lesson. Survival honestly depends on control, not excess. Managing heat, moisture and exposure. It all requires discipline and understanding, rather than just brute force solutions. Recognizing where modern practices originate, well, it really does deepen your respect for their reliability. So, if you value serious historical insight with practical relevance, do consider supporting the work of this channel. Subscribe to Echoes of Valor, share this guide with fellow history and outdoor enthusiasts, and help preserve the lessons that continue to keep people alive in hostile environments.